How are you doing, Michelle?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you, Devin?
Doing great. It's
We
been
are
busy. It's been a busy week. But a very productive week. Have had a chance to interact with a lot of different people, and it's been just been a lot of fun. How's your week going?
a little bit of the same. It's
Yeah.
been a very busy last couple of weeks, it feels like. And I did over the weekend a festival. So I was a vendor at the Mind Body Magic Festival in Nashville, and that was a blast. Super
Okay.
cool to like see everybody, connect with people in the community. And so today's topic is actually springing forth from some of what we've discussed since that festival for me. So I was there, and at the very end of the festival, I had this like college almost grad come over to me, and it was so nice because he was like so excited, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I have so many questions for you." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Like, shoot, what are your questions?" And he said, I want to know all the things. You have this coaching business. I want to have a coaching business. I'm in college. I'm like starting this thing up. And how did you create this? How are you successful? You know, that whole thing. Where do you find your clients? And so he was really eager to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that about people. But what was my response to him? It was like, oh my gosh, well, for this time in my life, I hire people. I hire good, solid mentors. For me, right now, I think I have 3 different mentors in different
Yeah.
areas. So I told him, I was like, you either can figure it out on your own and take
Sure.
the time and do the research and put in all of that, which is totally feasible. And I spent a lot of my previous experience like doing that. And that's one of the benefits of me being able to just reinvest into the business, right?
Yeah.
But I told him, I was like, either you figure it out yourself, or you can hire for experts. And of course, there's a middle ground too, is connecting with experts that are willing to work with you and mentor you for no cost. You know, these are
Yeah.
people that a lot of friends of mine have had really amazing mentors that they're like, these are people I connect with that are willing to put in some time and invest in me for me to be successful. So we're talking about mentorship.
Mentorship. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think about that. I mean, that's great. And certainly there are opportunities for people to reach out to professionals like yourselves and find um, you know, find guidance that way. I'll say that, I'm kind of thinking back at throughout the course of my career. I've certainly had people who I've leaned on, people who have helped me, and usually they were, my supervisors at work who were kind of training me and teaching me how to do things. But I don't really consider that mentoring. That's sort of, on the job training. And so when I think about mentoring and I see the opportunities and what people are doing today, I don't know that I've never really had a true mentor. Again, there are different ways to define that mentor mentee relationship, and we'll be talking about that. But I don't think I've ever had that, and so I've kind of had to find my way, talking to different people about different things at one point and another, but not with any sort of regular cadence. And so I think it's beneficial to have this discussion about what is that relationship, what does it look like, how do you initiate something like that, how do you maintain and engage in such a way that it's mutually beneficial and you end up with that that end result that you're looking for.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising to me that you have not had mentors, because I know you personally, you mentor, I mean, more than just a couple of people, I think, right? You're like a positive influence. And I know even when we worked in the same field, when I was in sales engineering as well,
Yeah.
it was like I kind of considered you my mentor at one time too, because it was like, oh my gosh, this person has been doing this, super successful, knows the craft and the knowledge base.
All
like
right, all right.
right, laying it on thick. But yeah, so I know that you have certainly taken on that role of being
Yeah.
a mentor to other people.
Yeah, and it's something that you know, God, there's so many different angles to go at this. So you know, we talk about, you know, what that relationship, how it's structured, but kind of going back to your point, it's something that I have done for the past, you know, past several years, maybe several years plus. But it is something that I find to be, you know, it's rewarding. And I think, you know, both of us, you look at kind of what we do, you know, at work, and also, you know, the fact, you know, this very podcast is really built on this idea of being able to share knowledge in such a way that you know, we're trying to help others. And it's not to say that we have all the answers, because clearly we don't, at least I don't. But one of the things that I've found, and one of the things that, you know, I always in when I get to engage with other people, and I'd mentioned at the onset, you know, this past week, I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of different people. And it's something that just feeds my spirit, feeds my soul, because every single person, you know, and you can look at someone who's, you know, been working for decades in a certain role, all the way to someone who, you know, is just starting out. Everyone has something they know, something that they can share, that we can all learn from. And, you know, that's a lesson that I was taught very early on in my career, that you never want to dismiss anyone or think that someone, you know, is lesser, because every conversation you have with someone is, you can glean some information from them. And so I think that when we have this mentor-mentee relationship, it's an opportunity for us to really engage with people, get to know them, both on a personal and professional level, and then get that sort of information and share those ideas and have those really engaging conversations. So I think of a mentor-mentee relationship as really just forming this, you know, this relationship where you can have those conversations that are focused on a predefined goal of, you know, what we want to do, where do we want to go. So that's something that I just really enjoy.
Yeah. So I'm curious, because you've had people, how did it come to be entering into that mentor-mentee relationship with you? So
it's interesting. A couple of different ways. I mean, you know, I think about, you brought it up, is when we first met. I think, you know, you were starting out in sales, and we just had a very natural conversation that continued on a regular basis, of different ways, different strategies, tactics that we can use to better, you know, to be more effective at what we do. And I think for me, in my, you know, I've you know, been around a while, but I've had an opportunity to, you know, I've learned so much from different people. I've learned that, you know, little kind of tips and tricks from different people, and from different seminars I've attended, and books I've read, and videos I've watched. And whenever you see something, I think there's a natural tendency for people that when you see something that you think, wow, that's really cool, it's almost, you know, you want to share that, right? Most of the time, right? You know, you hear, you know, we hear about, you know, you watch something on TV, or you see something on social media, or on you know, on your phone, or read a book, see a movie. Whenever you see something that really excites you, that you think, wow, this is great, everyone should know about this. That's why we have like Yelp and all those other platforms, is because we want to share what we know. And so I think it's a natural thing. And so, having experienced a lot of different things and learned a lot of things, benefited from a lot of other people passing down that knowledge, I kind of just naturally want to share that information. And so that's probably, you know, when we met, we were talking about that. And, you know, in my mind, you know, kind of the process in my mind was, you know, what are some of the things that I wish I had been taught? What are some of the things that I wish I would have known when I was in that position? And what can I give that person so that they can accelerate that, you know, that path that they're on. So that's kind of I didn't really answer your question. That was kind of the motivation behind that. But, how has that happened? Sometimes just naturally. There have been times, and I actually have a number of folks I'm working with right now who have whether I've given a presentation or done something, who've come up to me afterwards, similar to the story you shared at the beginning, where they've come and said, I want to, I learned, XYZ, something from your presentation. How do I learn more? What can I do? And then we start this conversation, and it's turned into, I've got, it's a handful of people who now we actually have this very regular cadence of regular meetings where we're getting together, we're kind of checking on the progress and kind of helping along, towards whatever they're looking for. So sometimes it's organic, other times it's very intentional in, this is what I'd like to learn. Can you help? And I think, when you see someone who does that, like, the student who came up to you, it's neat, right? It's inspiring when you have someone who has acknowledged they want to be better. They want to know more. How do they do that? They want to talk to the right people. And so it's, somewhat flattering, and it's neat that they come to you and say, hey, can you help me? Can you be that person to guide me? And so that's something that again, I just find just tremendously rewarding. And so that's how I've sort of fallen into that.
Yeah, I think that so I was just reading the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and which, if you've never read it, highly recommend. It's kind of one of the foundational, like, financial kind of literacy books out there. Been around for a very long time. And I was like, this is a classic in the business world. Let me read this. And the premise of that book is this person, the author of the book, has his biological dad, which he refers to as his poor dad, and then he has his friend's dad, which is Rich Dad. And Rich Dad has a very successful company and does all these different things. And so when his son and then the friend, the author of the book, they approach the dad, basically the rich dad, and they start getting all of this knowledge, and they're really eager to learn. What's so interesting is throughout Rich Dad's successful companies, he said, nobody has ever asked me for help. No one, all of my employees who are basically just making enough to live their life, but never will be wealthy, never will get to my financial freedom. They have never once approached me and said, what can you teach me? They approach me and they say, can I have a raise? Can I take vacation? Yeah. But they never say, what can you impart the knowledge that you have that has made you successful? So I think mentoring people and asking for that mentorship is like such an underutilized life skill. Like when someone approaches me and is like, I'm so excited, just like I told you from the festival, it's like, I am so eager to, I'm like, oh my gosh, let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about this. I don't want to overwhelm you, but like, here's this that was really helpful, and you should read this book. And so it's like, I'm sure you felt the same way. When someone asks you for help, you're like, yes, of course, let me help you. And you want to share the kind of like the joy and some of the lessons too. I think that when we go through hardship and challenges, part of that for us is like, well, this becomes part of our story. And of course, this has to benefit, like we can use this to benefit other people if we kind of get the silver linings out of it. Yeah. I know for me, like I struggled with burnout. I had chronic health conditions. I had severe anxiety, and that went into the business that I have created now, because I want to impart wisdom to other people. And so it's not just all my own experience. It's not just all in vain. It wasn't just, oh, that was a really bad time.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, it goes back, and you said it perfectly, is that there are things that we're passionate about, things that bring us joy. And when someone kind of like scratches at that and says, tell me more, it's hard to get us to stop talking sometime for some of us. But so there's that side of it, right? Is this idea that, someone is asking for help, and that's great. And you want to do that. You want to help, you want to share. But we talk a lot about kind of boundaries. We talk a lot about being very intentional about how we spend our time. And certainly our time, there's a limitation, right? And we can't say yes to everyone.
Yeah.
So how do we, how do we manage that? How do we provide how do we, tell that story without it, really becoming sort of a, part-time job that takes away from the other things that we're doing? Because, we talked about the fact that you're doing it in some degrees, in some roles, as in a consultant role, which is part of your business. But for others, it's something where it is a volunteer. It's basically just voluntarily giving up your time, sort of like the big brother, big sister thing. I'm not sure. Is that's still around? I hope it is.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that sort of arrangement of mentorship is something that does take time. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, this is a big one, because as you get, I guess, more well-known within whatever you're doing, or you build those relationships, people will naturally start to talk to you or ask you about this thing. And just this past so on Monday, I had someone, and she was in kind of a similar career path as me. She was also a coach. She works in mental wellness, and she had reached out, and it was kind of like I just needed to take a moment to check in with myself about what her intention could be with this. But her request didn't feel 100% genuine. And so she had asked me to schedule time with her so she could pick my brain. And I do not have time for these pick your brain sessions. Absolutely not. If I answered everyone who said, can I pick your brain, I would be in meetings all the time, Monday through Friday. And so I just don't have the time and space or capacity for that, for where I'm at right now. So I just very clearly told her, I was like, listen, I don't do those. I don't have the time in my schedule, but what I can offer you is this. And I said, we can meet very specifically. We can go over this. I am making sure that I am following the thing that I think is most important to finding out what she really needs. If she's coming to me with a genuine need, I'm going to see if I can fill that need, but there's some boundaries around it, just like you said. And you probably have also been in these situations where an innocent, like, let me pick your brain session turns into an all afternoon. We're kind of stuck in this weird situation. And then I feel like I'm being used, and it's not mutually beneficial anymore.
Yeah. And I think sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to kind of wrap that up with, when I was at the festival, I had a booth. My time was already marked in my calendar. I was already present there. I wanted to connect with people. And when this person comes over, it's like, okay, we have the time. I will talk to you. Absolutely. Let's share some knowledge right here, right now. And so it was already had like a boundary around it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you think about the boundaries and the fact that, you don't want it to be, you don't want to ever feel like, your time, you're being taken advantage of. And I'm reminded of, Simon Sinek talks about the importance of, when you have this mentor-mentee relationship, the reciprocity, that it does have to be mutually beneficial. And he actually says that it shouldn't be a mentor-mentee relationship. It should be a mentor-mentor relationship where where you acknowledge that, and kind of goes back to what I'd said earlier, is that you can learn things from anyone. And it actually just I'm thinking about this. This just happened to me this morning. So there is another sales engineer who I've been mentoring for a couple of years now. And we meet on a regular basis and just talk through technical things and then non-technical things, sales strategies, things like that. And we've been doing it on a regular basis. And it's always, most of the time, it's something where I'm working with her and helping her through certain challenges. And then today I ran into a problem, and I thought, and the problem had to do, not to get into the specifics, but it had to do with procedures of, tender bidding in Canada, because she's located in Canada. And so I called her up, and I got to have this really great discussion with her. And she helped me better understand kind of the process up in Canada. See how I did that? And so I think it does have to be beneficial, kind of going back to that idea of, how much time does it take? You always have to make sure you set those boundaries. But I'll tell you that most of the people I talk to, it's maybe 1 hour a month. It's not, it's usually not, we need to meet, 3 hours a week. If that was the case, that'd be overwhelming. It'd be a bit much. But I think it's always good to have, I think depending on, what the goals are and what time is available, I think having that regular cadence of once a month for 1 hour works very well. Usually it's not 1 hour. Usually it's 50 minutes, because you know about my 1 hour.
Refer back block. To the How to Lead an Effective Meeting episode.
So exactly. So it's thinking through, I guess, one of the things that comes up is, okay, how do we do this? How do we set up engaging, productive mentor-mentee relationship? And I think it starts off with, first of all, there's that acknowledgement of, yes, can we help each other? Does this make sense? Can this work? And it usually comes in the form of, someone approaching you or, having that discussion. But one of the first things I always like to do is let's make sure that we understand what are the goals. Because someone might say, well, I heard you talk about this. I really would like to learn more about this, and this. And, you may say, that's great. There are certain things that I can help you with. And there are other times when you might say, I'm not the person for you, but I do know someone who can help you. So it's first off, understanding what are the goals, what are you trying to learn? Because at some point in time, I've been saying, meet once a month. At some point in time, maybe a measure of success is the fact that they don't really need to meet every month anymore. And so once you've established what are those goals, if their goal is, I want to do this because I want to, reach this milestone. Well, once they've hit that milestone, then, the need for that mentorship relationship maybe is no longer needed, or maybe it's just at a much lesser extent. So I always think, first off is understand what the goals are of the relationship. And the goals should be tied, as we've spoken throughout the podcast, not only to professional goals, but how those relate to a person's personal goals. I always like to understand, what are you trying to do? What would you like to do? And does that support, what your main personal goals or life goals are? Is that consistent? Because I think, a lot of times we get in these relationships where they're so, high performing, they're so keenly focused on the business side of things, then they lose sight of the other things that could end up, without that balance could disrupt or really sabotage those efforts. So that's kind of the key is having that understanding. The other thing I think that's important is having a cadence, is having that let's meet once a month. There are certainly mentor relationships where it's just call me whenever you need to. But I don't, that's not really, you can't, it's difficult to kind of track the progress when you're doing that. So those are sort of my first two main things. What are your thoughts on, the I guess aspects of a successful or productive, we'll say productive mentor-mentee relationship?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because as we were talking, I was actually thinking there is, I mean, we referenced the paid mentor-mentee relationship of more of like a consultant, and
Yeah.
then the free or the mutually beneficial relationship. And I think with all of that, there's got to be an energy exchange in some way, whether that's
Yeah.
time, money, energy, helping each other, whatever it may be. There, that is foundational to actually making this successful, because when you have that, like I said, then you're not feeling that resentment of, oh, I'm just helping this person in this way, or they're taking advantage of me. And that happens even with paid clients too, if you don't set the appropriate boundaries, or you've had this person on and they're not exactly the right fit for your program or what you're doing. So the energy exchange, because people have to be invested in some way, or else they're not going to do the work. Luckily, most people who are approaching I want mentorship, they have that drive already, where they know that there's something that they want to improve on, and they're willing to put in the work to make that happen. From a consultant's side of things, where people pay me in this role, I will say there is a difference between charity and business. My
Yeah.
business is not a charity. And for a long time, I operated my business like a charity, and that was not successful, right? So
Yeah.
people didn't get good results. They didn't put in the work. They didn't have that energy exchange. So regardless, paid or free mentorship, there's got to be that investment. The other thing I wanted to mention is accountability. So I have a kind of like a fitness mentor. She's a fitness coach. She's amazing. And so I hired her on. She's not a huge investment either. So in terms of my investment financially, it's a pretty low investment. But immediately what I noticed was I benefited from having the accountability with her.
Yeah.
And so I think that also is part of what makes the relationship really successful, is having that level of accountability, because then the person who is being mentored, they are like, oh, I want to make some progress here. I want to come back to our monthly meeting and have this good news to share, or make these strides. Like it just kind of lights the spark for us.
Yeah. And I think, you talk about accountability. It reminds me of my brother. My brother's actually, he's a guitar instructor. That is what he does as a profession. And I remember years and years ago, I wanted to learn, more about guitar. I play guitar. I don't know if you knew that. But I asked him, hey, you give lessons to all these people. Why don't you teach me? And he basically said, nope. And he said he doesn't teach like friends and family. And the reason why is because it's so easy when you have sort of that casual relationship for there not to be that level of accountability. It's so easy to just say, it's just my brother. I don't need to do anything, but
we'll get over it.
Yeah. But when you have this relationship of a teacher and a student, and there's an expectation every week that, I need to practice, I need to get better because I need to show up next Thursday, and I better show that I can do, what he taught me the week before. And so it is important, whether it be paid or unpaid, that there is an understanding that there's a level of expectation as to what each party is giving and getting through that exchange.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's funny, because I'm sure you would know when you have that relationship with somebody, okay, well, I'll be okay. Like they're not going to yell at me. They're not going to look down on me. It's all going to be fine. And so that kind of goes back to that investment again.
Yeah. And I've found that the more successful mentor-mentee relationships that I've had the opportunity to be involved in are with people who, there is sort of a, we're obviously, friendly, but there is sort of a detachment where, I don't know if that's the right word, but there's an understanding that there has to be, that accountability. kind of said the same thing over.
Yeah, like that expectation.
That expectation.
That expectation for right off the bat.
Yeah. And so, with the individuals I'm working with right now, it's something where I'll tell them, we'll go through, we'll talk through. And I always start off with, okay, we talked about this last time, what have you done? How are things going? What are the questions? And then before we wrap up, I always say, okay, now before next time, this is what, this is your homework. That you need to do this, and this, and we'll see how things go. And they know that, okay, next month, we have to put in that effort, because if you have that casual relationship, it's just sort of, oh yeah, he's going to help me whenever I have a question, then it's really not that true relationship.
Yeah, so, I agree.
Okay. So we talked about a bunch of things. We talked about, make sure we're focused on the goals, having that sort of regular cadence, making sure that there's an understanding, that level of expectation for accountability. And I think, in addition to kind of my last thing, if you will, to wrap things up, is just making sure that both parties, you've got this, you're able to talk freely, you can give and take constructive feedback, constructive criticism, if you will. So you can have those very honest discussions. And it helps when your mentor is not, your boss or someone you have that working relationship with, because they are completely detached. They don't care if you make your sales numbers or are able to win a project. They're focused on your development. And so because you don't have that, that working side of things, it becomes a lot easier. So being able to have open discussions and tell someone that's, you're messing, or you're not doing it right, or, things like that. And on the other side, saying, hey, that advice you gave me was terrible and it didn't work. Being able to have that will really help build the level of trust and really contribute to a meaningful working relationship.
Absolutely. And I guess my final thought on this is that don't be afraid, regardless of what the investment is, whether it's, oh, I found someone who I think is really great in this, or I'm paying $5,000 for this, whatever that is. Don't be afraid to really kind of check out that person that you're going to be mentored by in that way. Don't be afraid to really look at what that person's core values are, their ideals, their history. And I say this because I have been burned in the past by mentors, people that I had also paid. And the space for coaches and consultants and these typically mentoring type roles, a lot of that exists online, and that can be this world of unknown of how people present themselves and what they really like, how they run whatever aspect you're looking for mentorship in. So don't be afraid to spend a little bit of time, ask some questions, and really give yourself the ability to go forward confidently that this is a person of value to you, that you wouldn't mind following in their footsteps, or at least getting the information that they have to give you, that really aligns with you. Because I think a lot of people do. Sometimes they get burned or they don't have a great experience. And so we want to make sure that it's something that they can feel at least confident in and be able to make it just a positive energy exchange at the end of the day.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.
Well, great. That was a fun conversation.
Yeah. Let us know if you have a mentor. I would love to hear if anyone has a mentor or if they have been a mentor. I feel like that's a really good discussion. I'm so happy that we connected on this, like very timely.
Yeah.
Because it's a good conversation to have. Like I said, I think it's an underutilized like art of having people help lift you up to meet your goals. And we have plenty of episodes about goals and core values and building that roadmap. So we all need the support that we can get.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Well,
Awesome.
great. That was fun. I guess we'll see you next time.
Yeah, we'll see you next
All right.
time.
See you, Michelle.
Bye.
Bye.